Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell in just a moment. So the Buckeyes, we call them the defending national champs, right? I love what Ryan Day said yesterday. He's like, we're attacking. We're not defending anything. They can't take the national title away from us. We're attacking. I absolutely love that. The attacking national champions. Also, it took all of 3 weeks for the College Sports Commission to fold their stance and allow collectives to do their thing. That didn't take long. We predicted it would happen. I thought there would actually have to be a court case for it to happen, but they just decided, no, we have no chance here. We're just going to fold. Hey, good. That's better than going to court and losing. So good on them for doing that. There was just no way it was going to hold up. So we're going to get into all that and just talk about everything that we took in yesterday from Big Ten Media Days. Curious to get Bax's take on all of that. Before we do that, I'll let you guys know about Factor Meals, a great deal you guys can get. It's fantastic. Plenty of summer left. Again, unless you cover Ohio State football because summer's over for the beat writers. But for you guys, plenty of summer left. You don't want to be stuck inside cooking, cleaning, prepping, especially the cleaning up afterwards. Isn't that the worst part? Factor gives you high quality meals that are ready in 2 minutes, no prep, no cleanup, high quality, tastes great, never frozen. So you guys got to take advantage of this awesome deal I'm going to tell you about in a minute. Some of the things I like, I love their smoothies. As far as the meals, there's so many that I like. Grilled chicken, sun-dried tomatoes, filet mignon. There's just so many. They have so many. Whatever you guys are doing, if you're doing keto, if you're low carb, they have something for everybody. So take advantage of this. And this is a fantastic deal. Get started at factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off. Use code bucknuts50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code bucknuts50 off at factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off. All right, let's bring in Matt Baxendell, who, even though he is a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, also likes the Blue Jackets and is a huge hockey guy. So I'm sure he likes that I'm wearing a little hockey gear for the show. What do you think?
Nice work, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you. The future Stanley Cup champion.
Columbus. I better like the Blue Jackets. I have two boys that play for the AAA program. So, it's actually a little awkward when your son's arch rival is your favorite professional sports team's youth team. So I don't get to wear much of my Penguins gear anymore because I look like I'm supporting the enemy.
You've always had a good mindset about that because there were no jackets when you were growing up. You were a Penguins fan. You're a Pittsburgh sports fan because you were, even though you mostly grew up in that Boston area. Do I have that right? But you're originally.
Oh, Dave, it's a long story, but I actually lived in Wheeling until I was 11 years old.
Wheeling, okay, there you go. Wheeling, West Virginia. Okay,
yep.
You have that Wheeling feeling. Huh?
Yep.
Wheeling feeling. I heard Theo Vaughn make a joke about that. It was hilarious. Talking about that. He met a girl. He's like, I'm going to give you that wheeling feeling. He was like, what is that? It was a hilarious joke from Theo Vaughn about the wheeling feeling. All right. I tell you what, I got the wheeling feeling about Ryan Day yesterday. That was awesome. Coming out there, and he doesn't even do it where if you're an opposing team, you're probably like, man, this guy's awesome. He doesn't even say it like he's a jerk. He just is awesome. Like him coming out there and being like, we're not defending anything. They can't take the national title away from us. We're attacking. Man, I love that, Bax. Love it.
Do you know what this reminds me of? You remember we had the chase and we had the grind and all the other names. I guess this year is the attack is what we're going to have to go with. I think that's the theme of the year. Ryan Day, when he's at his best, I used to call him the smiling assassin. Because he'd be before the game, he'd walk up to a coach, be like, man, it's great to be here. Wow, it's such a great experience. Hey, man, great to see you. And then in his head, he's like, we're going to score 60 on you today. But, we haven't seen him smile as much because the last game of the season hasn't gone his way recently. But, now that the national title's sort of taken that pressure off of him, you're getting back to seeing that guy that we had early on. So I'm not surprised that we got something like this from him. He's always really good in these settings. And, yeah, the attack sounds like a lot more fun. That I for all the great things Urban did, I remember thinking the grind doesn't sound like very much fun. The chase sounded like a heck of a lot more fun. So the attack, I think, may be a lesson learned a little bit from some of that experience too.
It also it also kind of takes the pressure off the players. Like, you guys aren't defending anything. We're attacking. Let's see where the chips fall. We're not defending anything. That 2024 banner is going to hang forever. Let's go get another one. And who knows,
To
man?
be the man, you got to beat the man. I expected Ryan Day to woo after he said the attack, but it works totally fine. And I think you're right. You got to take the pressure off these guys. It's a lot of a new team. It's hard to repeat, but it's also not impossible. Ohio State right now is a couple D tackles emerging and good quarterback play away from being every bit as good as anybody in the country. So I'm right there with it for sure.
Yeah, like Emily just posted. How funny was that? All the guys that went to media days were under 21 years old. And in Vegas, you can't even get in the hotel unless you're 21 for obvious reasons. So you had Sonny Styles. People are like, Sonny's a senior. Because we all know. I mean, people that don't know Ohio State, it's like, how is he only 20 years old if he's a senior?
Because he enrolled at 17.
Exactly. Caleb Downs is still 20, and JJ's only 19 and just turned 19, by the way.
They're all staying at the circus in the kids area, Dave.
What's that? They had to go to the circus, the kids area.
It was well known for a long time as having a big kiddie area so the adults could drop the kids off. It was like, the babysitting hotel whenever, like back in the day. That's not as much anymore, but we'll see.
I never understood. I guess that unless you just have to do it. I never understood taking the kids with you to Vegas. That's where
I don't know.
In-laws have to come in at that point. I think somebody in the family needs to step up.
I used to go to Vegas on a summer basis for a company that I was running, and my oldest son would always be like, "Daddy, I want to go to Vegas. I want to go to Vegas with you." I'm like, "Buddy, you're not allowed to be in Vegas. They don't let kids in Vegas. It's not allowed." And he goes, "I had a friend who went to a hockey game in Vegas." And I'm like, they had like a window where the kids were allowed in for hockey, and then they made them leave. You can't go to Vegas. I had him convinced you weren't legally allowed in Vegas until you were 21, until he was like 11 years old. So, telling your kids some stories can be a lot of fun sometimes.
So listening to Sonny and Caleb, because I've been concerned about leadership, but I've said Sonny and Caleb were big time leaders last year. Caleb was one of the most vocal guys. Not that we were there for the meeting, the come to Jesus meeting that they had, the airing of grievances, whatever you want to call it, like a few days after the Michigan game. They all got on the same page. They all got it out. I give Ryan Day a lot of credit for allowing the players to do what they did. And I've heard from everybody that I trust that Caleb Downs is one of the most vocal people in that meeting, which says a lot when you have like some of the leaders of men that were on that team last year, just so many, even guys that weren't even captains. Like, I don't think Latham was a captain last year, was he? Latham was an absolute great leader. Maybe he was. I'll have to go back and look. But so many great leaders on that team last year, with Emeka and Jack and Will, so many. So I'm concerned about leadership to a degree because Sonny and Caleb are just, the way they handled themselves yesterday, which is no surprise. We've seen them. This is how they are. So I'm not concerned about leadership on defense. You also have, I think IGB is going to be a leader in his own way. Jermaine Matthews. There's others. Offense, I am a little concerned. Like, who are the main leaders on offense? Not that they're devoid of leaders, but because I think JJ can be a leader in his own way. He leads by example. He was one of him and Saraveld's another one. Iron Buckeye. They were two of the three Iron Buckeyes along with Sonny Styles. So you do have some, but they're younger guys. You have sophomores. Luke Montgomery's a junior, maybe a Carson Hinsman. But Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, I've been told, is taking a leadership role. I think Carnell's a great example. Backs, Kaz Merrick. It's not like they don't have leaders. It's just they had such great leaders last year across the board. I'm a little concerned about leadership on offense, but I'll tell you, man, watching Sonny Styles, my God, that guy is just the epitome of a leader, and so is Caleb Downs.
Yeah, I think, obviously JJ is the alpha of alphas when it comes to wide receivers, and everybody's going to look at him. But at the end of the day, he's going to be a guy that is really the obvious one offensively. But, man, yeah, you're right. Downs and Styles are they are big-time kind of leadership guys. Those are going to be two of the biggest and most vocal guys in college football this year. And what else can you expect, by the way? If you have guys that just won national titles, guys that are expecting to be high draft picks. I mean, Caleb Downs coming from Alabama to Ohio State and winning a national title is a classic example of a guy who made a great decision in where he's playing his college football at. So I think leadership, look, here's the reality. Leadership is earned. Leadership is learned. Those are things that happen over time. And in a sport like college football, where you rotate through guys sometimes, with the way graduation works. It is a, by definition, transient sport. You're not going to sit there and have, the Sidney Crosbys or the whoever's of the world that are there forever. So some of these younger guys that we're saying, well, are they going to be the leader? Well, we're going to see. And by the way, we talk about leadership. Whoever wins this quarterback battle is going to have to be a leader by default. And that's something that we're going to have to watch closely over the course of this year to see who it's going to be. So, leadership is something I think you're always looking for, but I think you have a lot of guys in this team, especially with those big three they brought out to Vegas, that you can lean on.
Ken Taco Hut. Downs is giving me DOS vibes. That's just the number 2.
Yeah, it's just the number 2 and the total dominance
right?
against the run.
Well, that's been a good number for the Buckeyes, man. Chris Carter, Downs, Doss, Michael Jenkins wore the number 2. We've had some good number 2s. 7's been a great number. 10's been a great number. 7 has just been – that's a fantastic number. I'm not even going to do it off the top of my head, all the great number 7s the Buckeyes have had. And 10 at the quarterback position. I like seeing Julian Sand wearing that number 10. 10's been good to Ohio State at the quarterback position. I know like Art Schleister turned out to be a complete turd, but he got the ball rolling with that. No, he didn't get the ball rolling. Rex Kern got the ball rolling.
Rex Kern, yeah. I was going to say Rex Kern.
My dad would punch me in my face. That was his favorite player, was Rex Kern. He was an absolute wizard. I never saw him play
national champion Rex Kern.
Sophomores. Rex Kern was an absolute wizard with like faking where the ball was going to go, which if you're in a Woody Hayes offense, good thing to have as a quarterback.
You better be good at that. Yeah.
He's got about 10 different guys that are going to run the ball.
The last quarterback we had that wore 10 and started was a Heisman Trophy winner, so he wasn't bad either. So,
no doubt about it. Yeah, exactly. Troy Smith, the only Big Ten quarterback to ever win the Heisman Trophy, unless you consider Les Horvath a quarterback, which I don't really consider him a quarterback. Yeah.
Well, remember all those quarterbacks who won it for us at Nebraska and USC these days? Big Ten history right there, Dave.
We can go on and on with number 2s, man. I'm telling you. A Mecca. Heck yeah. Terrell Pryor. All right. So here's another thing I love about J.J. Smith. He's a man of few words, but my gosh, he's just such a good guy. Like, he was asked for the Mount Rushmore of Ohio State receivers, right? Who are the 4? He knows he's on that mount already, but he's too cool to say it. He's too humble to say it. And I like the guys he picked. I mean, as somebody said on Twitter, I love this. We're going to need a bigger mountain because, like, you could make an argument for about 15 different guys. His was Chris Carter, speaking of number 2.
Yep.
He mentioned then a couple of recent guys, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then you're thinking, okay, who else is he going to name? Because they're like, okay, give me one more. And he was like, Ted Ginn Jr. And Ted Ginn Jr. enjoyed that. I gave him a shout. I was like, thank you, brother. I love that. So he put Teddy on there. I love it, man. I mean, you could put Terry Glenn on there. There's so many you could put on there. So many.
David Boston.
Yeah, no
Garrett
doubt.
Wilson, Chris Olave.
No doubt about it.
Terry Santonio Holmes.
Exactly. Terry Glenn won the Bolitnikoff Award. Okay. I mean, like, Terry Glenn is on that mountain. It's just we need a bigger mountain. But anyway, I just love JJ. I love him. I love him as a player, obviously, but he's a great young man too. Works his butt off. He's almost too good to be true, Bax.
The very first thing that anybody said about him whenever we got him is that he immediately came in with the scouting report. When you look aside from the fact that he's like built in a lab to be an elite receiver physically, the scouting report on him was that he has literally the best work ethic of anybody in the class at any position. That was the story I heard about him as a junior in high school, was that his work ethic was a 15 out of 10. And, we all have heard the story about he got cut from a 7-year-old Pee Wee team and he just, it totally changed his mind forever. What's crazy about him is the Iron Buckeye as a freshman. Look, there's a hungry young pup who's a big touted kid who's coming in and is hungry for it. This is a guy who won a national title last year and might have been the key player. I mean, what do we do to clinch the natty? Throw it up to JJ and let him come down with the ball, right? At the end of the day. And he's still an Iron Buckeye. He's still starving. Like, this guy has one of those mindsets that it's just elite. There's no other way to put it. Like, this is, going into urban mode. He's elite. He's just elite, right? Like, it's that simple. And he's not satisfied. That's the part that has me just really interested here to watch what he does this year. And if the quarterback play is anywhere near what we think it could be, like, it's hard to do better than he did last year. It's just hard. But, like, he's a legit Heisman Trophy winner with the hype that's around him, with the work that he's put in at any position in college football. Right now, Ohio State has so many new guys we're replacing, but Ohio State may have the two best players in all of college football on their team this year in him and Downs. Like, and that's not being hyperbolic. That's not being a homer. That's not being, Mr. Buckeyes here. Those are maybe the two best players in college football this year at any position. And it's wild with Smith that he's a true sophomore coming off of perhaps the best freshman receiver year in the history of the sport. And he's still that hungry. Like, I wish I could teach my kids that kind of work ethic. Like, my boys play sports. They work hard. They do really well at them. Every father who has a kid in sports is watching JJ's work ethic and thinking, how do I teach that? Because that is his superpower more than anything else right there. There's nobody hungrier than Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, we can be still basking, and we damn sure are, but JJ's still grinding, as you said. He's still working. There's no time to bask if you're Jeremiah Smith. You're on a different level. He's leaving the basking to us. We're taking that mantle as he works his butt off. He's up to 225 pounds, man, and he says he's faster. He lifts like he's an offensive lineman. He can do like 22 reps of 225 pounds on the bench.
Remember how we thought David Boston would be the greatest specimen we ever saw at wide receiver, and we didn't think it would be close? Boston's guns were the size of like 3 rows in the horseshoe. Jeremiah Smith is more of a robot than David Boston ever was, and it's crazy to think that he's only a sophomore. Part of me sits here and wonders if he's sitting there and all the time when he's working out, he's thinking about the one drop he had the entire year that he probably would have housed in the first game and then didn't drop a ball the rest of the season with all those insane plays that he made. So some people, man, they're just built different, right? You hear the kids all the time, I'm built different. No, Jeremiah Smith is actually built different. And, that's a contagious mindset. That's going to be, when you talk about leadership, like Exhibit A right there.
I will say another receiver, and we all know him now because he has like sometimes some very strange takes on TV, but I'll always love him. Another guy, if he played with better quarterbacks in a different era, that would have been fantastic. Joey Galloway, who he was still like a top 10 overall pick. If he didn't get hurt in the NFL, he would. I mean, he still had a long, good NFL career. Joey Galloway was fantastic. He was another guy.
It was a crazy
like
deep
he was a freak, lifted like he was an defensive tackle. He could bench like crazy, squat. And listen, he played with Bobby Hoying, but it was a young Bobby Hoying. Bobby Hoying ended up being a really good quarterback. When Terry Glenn won the Biletnikoff, who was his quarterback? 5th-year senior Bobby Hoying. But Galloway's biggest year was in 1993. That was first-year starter Bobby Hoying as a sophomore, and they had to bring in Brett Powers off the bench. They actually almost had a pseudo 2-quarterback system that year. And Galloway still put up a big year in 93. Not relative to what we've seen now. I'm saying Joey Galloway would be – he's not on the mountain, but he's damn close. We need a bigger mountain.
The fact that he's a colonel and not a general in our wide receiver army is insane. That guy for 5 years might have been the preeminent deep threat in the NFL. Like, people forget how good Joe Galloway was, even though we didn't maybe see quite as much of it at Ohio State versus when he got to the league, just because of timing and circumstances and the way offenses worked 30 years ago. But it's a shame that Buckeye fans are more annoyed than not at Joey Galloway with the way he acts on TV in terms of some of his not so accurate takes in college football, because that guy was one of the best wide receivers you'll ever see.
Ran like, I'll have to look it up. I don't want to exaggerate because it sounds ridiculous. Ran like a 4.2 40 at the combine, something like that. So the dude was just ridiculous.
He ran a
Bel Air, Ohio. The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, Ohio.
Yes, and by the way, having grown up right across the river from Bel Air, I can tell you that is not exactly a spot where a lot of great college football players come from, man. You get like the occasional like guard who goes to WVU. You don't get Joey freaking Galloway from an area like that.
Love it, Joey. And he still has that Eastern Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, or Wheeling draw. The O's. The way they say O's is the biggest like giveaway that it's like Eastern Ohio, Western Pennsylvania. You got a little bit of it in you, a little bit. All right, let's get to
It's
this.
been worn out of me, man. I've been in Columbus half my life now.
Yeah, you don't really have that. You don't really sound like a Yinzer or like an Eastern. People like right near the river in Eastern
I
Ohio.
can pull the Yinzer out.
I'm the
Yin's got
exact
down a
same way.
Steelers game in that. Yin's
What's
gone to
that?
see his Steelers. Yin's gone down to see his Steelers in that.
For the Steelers, yeah, Yins.
I'm
Terrell
half
Pryor.
Yinzer. So.
People used to not understand what Terrell Pryor was saying. They're like, "What's he saying?" I'm like, "He's saying Yins," because my entire family is originally from Altoona, Pennsylvania. I mean, my sister and I were born in Ohio because my dad was in the Air Force, which is what brought him to Dayton, Ohio, Wright Pat Air Force Base. So and that was his final stop. So, but my mom and my dad, all my aunts and uncles, cousins are all from Altoona, Pennsylvania. So when Pryor was like being interviewed when he was a freshman, some of the reporters were like, "What's he doing? What's this word he's saying?" I'm like, "He's saying Yins." Like it's like saying y'all or you guys. People had never heard that. I'm like, you guys have never heard of Yins? Like, we're not that far away from like Pittsburgh, 3 hours away. Anyway,
Pittsburghese is its own language, Dave. It's its own language.
It is definitely.
Don't be nebbing. Don't be nebbing.
The Yinzers are gonna Yins. All right, now, goodness gracious. As predicted, the College Sports Commission is now going to allow collectives to do their thing. Took all of 3 weeks. Now, I didn't predict it'd take 3 weeks. I thought this would go to court. You know how I feel about this. I thought all along, like, there's just no way. Someone's going to take this to court and they're going to win for sure. So the CSC then said, you know what? That's probably is what's going to happen. So we're just going to back off. And I don't know. Now Ohio State's going to have to try and reassess what they did, because what they did was they didn't get rid of the foundation, 1870 society and that stuff. They brought it all in-house. Now you don't need to do that. Now you can just go back to how it was, and that worked out pretty well. So I can't wait to talk to Brian Schottenstein about this. But listen, man, I'm curious to get your thoughts. It took the CSC all of 3 weeks to fold.
Yeah, and I have to say it's much quicker than I anticipated. I think both of us were probably anticipating that if this went to a court battle, then the CSC would lose. And I think that clearly was their calculus, was we're not wasting the legal fees on this. Just let them do it. But it essentially came down to Deloitte got a set of guidelines. And I've been saying this since this thing was announced, that Deloitte was going to follow those guidelines to the absolute letter of the law. That's what they do. They don't care what some guy in Auburn or some guy in Oregon is saying about some fake deal that is essentially pay for play. And now they backed off of it. So it's been something where Ohio State throughout this whole NIL process has been very much a rule follower, Dave. They have not been willing to go over their skis and things that can come back and bite them in the rear end. And so we've seen OSU, these are things you hear on the front row all the time. Oh, we're poor. Oh, we're not spending the money. Oh, Ohio State's cheap. No, Ohio State was trying to follow the rules, and some of these other programs were like, we don't care about it. We're not going to get busted at the end of the day. So our lack of aggression is based on that whole conservative mindset when it comes to the NIL side of things. And Ross Bjork said this the other day. He goes, we can essentially take, the collectives that were spun in-house. That's its own separate entity anyways. We can put it right back into functioning as a major collective if need be. They just sort of brought it in-house because they were allowed to bring it in-house. So this may end up just putting, let's face it, Ohio State had as much power in a collective sense down the stretch before this whole new ruling as anybody in the country when it came to spending money. Their philosophy was not to give offensive tackles coming out of high school $5 million guaranteed deals. That's still not going to change. Their philosophy was, we're going to attract some of the best transfers. We've already going to attract, no matter what we do, some of the best players, and then we're going to pay to keep them here. That's how we won a national title last year. So all this is going to mean is that Ohio State's going to have a little more free reign to work with its NIL dollars again. And that's fine. It's totally fine. All of this is going to be more money in the pot for all of these athletes at the end of the day. And it's going to sort of get us back into a scenario where college football has always been have-nots and haves, right? It's been like European soccer, where you've got a couple teams that are just the elite ones that have all the money, and then everybody else is playing catch-up. Well, this allows the elite teams with all the money, the Ohio States, the Texases of the world, to spend that $20 million however they want in revenue sharing, but then they're going to be able to double or triple that with their NIL money. And that's just going to go back into, some people aren't going to have a couple million in NIL, and some people are going to have 25 or 35 million in NIL. Like, I have no idea what Texas is spending looking at their recruiting right now, but it's through the roof. So that's the big change here, Dave.
It cracks me up, Bax, that like so much was made about Ohio State, the $20 million roster last year. So much was made of that by like national writers and fans of other teams. I'm telling you, man, we're going to look back on that as the best $20 million ever spent in sports. That as a bargain. I mean, look, already this year, Texas Tech's going to be well over $60 million, well over 60, triple what Ohio State was last year. And I don't know if Texas Tech's going to win the national title, Bax. I don't know if the Red Raiders are going to be still basking. I just don't see it.
I don't know if they're going to win the Big 12, Dave. Like
they might. I mean, I can see them winning the Big 12. I do, because they do have their quarterbacks. They have a lot of guys back. They bought a lot of guys. Texas Tech's going to be a factor in the Big 12, but yeah, I don't know if they're going to be basking like we are. All right, let me ask you.
They have $1 million softball player, Dave.
They did.
So remember, Texas Tech has a lot of money.
They have a dude who is a huge fan, who's an oil tycoon, who's decided, I'm going to use all of my play money, which really for him, $1 million is like $10 to us. He's like, I'm just going to go buy a softball player from Stanford for $1 million. Jeez, crazy times. All right. Speaking of crazy times, so Tony Petitti is, made the case again for play-in games. He wants the Big Ten to have 4 automatic qualifiers and the SEC. He wants 2 automatic qualifiers for the Big 12 and ACC. 1 automatic qualifier for the best group of 5, or was a group of 6 with the Pac-2 or whatever. And then 3 at large if it's 16 teams. And a lot of people don't like the idea of a play-in game. You can have like a 6th place Iowa, playing for a chance, 6th place in the Big Ten, playing a play-in game to get in the college football playoff. People are like, if you're in 6th place in the Big Ten, why would you deserve even a chance? I can kind of see both sides here, because it would be, if you got rid of the conference championship games, it would be exciting to have a do or die game between like Big Ten teams. It wouldn't be Ohio State if they were number 1 or number 2 would not be in those play-in games. The play-in games would be like the teams that were like on the bubble. I think the 3rd place Big Ten team would have to do that, though. Your thoughts on what Petitti said about his preference for the CFP?
Well, he's at heart, by definition, Dave, a TV guy.
Yes.
And what he wants is more inventory. And this kind of goes back to whenever years ago we were talking about the Big Ten getting bigger before all this happened. I said that I thought the Big Ten would go to a semifinal and a final model, where you'd have the top 4 teams and you'd have a 1-4 and a 3-2 game on one Saturday, and a week later you'd have that Sunday championship game. But that is sort of devalued out now, the championship. And so what Tony Petitti is proposing here is he claims it was hilarious. He's like, I want the games in November to matter more. And I'm like, that's a good point, because the regular season does sort of feel like less than it could be. But he's arguing to make those games matter more by creating 2 TV spectacles, the equivalent to the Big Ten championship game, and having the top 2 Big Ten teams automatically in. And I guess just awarding the conference championship based on regular season standings like we did for years in the Big Ten. So it's not a horrible idea, but it sort of monopolizes the national championship. So, for example, last year, Penn State and Oregon were in the Big Ten championship. They would have just been in the college football playoff. They never would have played, period. What would have happened is number 3, Indiana would have played number 6, Iowa for a spot. And number 4, Ohio State would have played number 5, Illinois for a spot. And so I don't know how great the TV ratings for that would have been. Maybe they would have been. Maybe they wouldn't have been. But the critics are going to say, well, those teams all got in the damn playoff anyways. What are we worrying about here? And if we'd had a 16th team, there's a scenario where you're starting to look at the likes of Illinois, who I think was 9-3 in the regular season and was like 17th or 18th at that point in the pool. The SEC had South Carolina and Ole Miss and the world's giant crybabies at Alabama that would have been right in the mix to get into those last couple spots too. I think that this is the Big Ten and SEC trying to assert their complete and utter dominance and make this the Big Ten SEC Invitational. And the hard part for a lot of people is they're looking at it saying, well, that's not a true national championship. It's the big boy invite. I mentioned that whole soccer thing where like in Europe, they have all those monster teams that have all the money and everything. They tried doing something like this over there. People can look it up. They called it the Super League. and they were going to take like the top 4 teams in England, the top 2 teams in Germany, and the top 2 teams in Spain, and the top 3 teams in Italy, and the rich team in Paris, and make them their own one big league, and kind of screw the rest of their system, which at this point allows a lot of the smaller teams to have some success and work their way up through Europe, all this other stuff. And the fans there rebelled, like flat out revolted. They hated it, and they all backed down. Well, here all the fans are like, all right, it needs more money for my team. Sure, let's go ahead and do it. Like, we've taken it totally opposite here in the U.S. with our similar system. And I think at the end of the day, Tony Petitti here, he just wants more TV stuff. Like, whether the jury's out whether he's going to be a great commissioner or not. He's certainly a better commissioner than worthless Kevin Warren. But, like, at the end of the day,
low bar. Yeah,
it's a low bar. That's what I'm saying. Like, the bar needs to be raised much higher for commissioner than what we got from Kevin Warren. But Petitti, to me, right now, is operating as a television executive who's trying to acquire more television property, and that's his background. And I don't know if it's necessarily the best stewardship overall for college football. I still like the 5 and 11 model a lot more, because at the end of the day, you're still going to get 4 or 5 teams in for the Big Ten in most years. For sure. I went back and did this in the bucket, Dave. I don't think the Big Ten the last 10 years would have had less than 4 teams in any year.
They had 4 in last year with 12. What are they worried about? They're 16. Of course, you're gonna get 4 in. Maybe they want the chance to get 5. I listen. Mo money. I get it. Follow the money, which is exactly why Petitti wants this. Because if you have a 3 versus 6 playing game and a 4 versus 5 playing game instead of the Big Ten championship game, those 2 games together for sure would get better ratings than the Big Ten championship game.
And it's twice the money. Here's the Big Ten championship game's money. They'll get double, because there'll be 2 of them. It's all about that extra game. That's all he's saying. And I think he's trying to do something for his coaches, which his coaches are like, the more chances I have to say I made the playoffs, the more my job security is. And the other argument he's making is and this is the one sneaky thing he's doing, is that he's heavily leaning on the SEC to finally go to 9 conference games. That's the argument right now, is that they need to go to 9 because they're going to have more teams sitting there with, quote, 10 wins, when half of them are against Cupcake State, Right. It's the Kurt Signetti thing. They asked him about this yesterday. Indiana just canceled games with Virginia, and they asked him about it, and he goes, we're going to an SEC schedule.
I love
what he means there is we're playing dog crap teams to guarantee 3 wins out of conference every year. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. SEC, no, not everybody in the SEC. Texas, for example, is not just playing cupcakes, but most SEC teams have 4 cupcakes because they rationalize it. Look, well, our conference is so tough, and usually the SEC has been the best conference. I mean, we got to be real; it has been the best conference. Not the last 2 years, though. Not the last 2 years it hasn't been, and it seems like, and we'll see, especially now that collectives can do their thing. Because I was concerned, man, if this actually went through. And collectives basically went away because all these deals were getting rejected. I was like, well, the bag man is going to just be back in full force, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody does the bag man better than some of the SEC schools. So
Auburn, sorry.
Exactly. I did have somebody I trust very much. Says everybody cheats. This is like years. The former Ohio State coach, by the way. I'm not going to say who it was. Said everybody cheats. Nobody cheats like Auburn, was what I was told.
Yeah, the casino ATM withdrawal cards were coming right back out, baby. The Auburn guys were like, oh, y'all get ready for this. It's going to be great.
That must have changed, though, because Auburn hasn't been relative. Again, I was told this like over 10 years ago. And so maybe things change at Auburn because they have not been relevant in a long time. I'm sure having Nick Saban in your own state at your rival probably wasn't good for Auburn all those years. All right, back.
It's been 10 years since they were a championship kind of team. Then it's not coincidental. The NIL era showed up. Auburn is a dinky little town in Alabama with not a lot of money going into it, other than some alumni. And that's one of the things that we always said for years. There's a lot more money in the Big Ten than there is in the SEC.
A lot more. A lot. But yeah, you think there's more money in places like Columbus and even Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis than like some of the DC. Jersey. I mean, think about it. Now LA. I mean, and think about some of the areas in the South we're talking about. I mean, Mississippi is the poorest state in our country. 50 out of 50, Mississippi, right? Alabama is not far behind. Okay. I mean, Louisiana has its I think Louisiana is a cool state, but like not a very like rich state. So All right. Well, I don't know. We talked about a little bit of everything. We talked about that wheeling, feeling, a little bit of everything on today's show. A little Theo Vaughn got a shout out. What's up, Theo Vaughn? All right, Bax. I appreciate it, man. Great stuff as always from Mr. Matt Baxendell. You can catch his award-winning column every Sunday on Bucknuts. It is the bucket. Thank you, Bax. Thanks to all of you. We appreciate it very much. Hope everyone has a great day. Go Bucks. Still basking.
Go Bucks.